The time for silence is over.
Have we seen proof of voter fraud at this point?
Some of those lawsuits, though, have already been dismissed.
You just can't go into court because you're mad or upset.
Without any evidence to support it.
The Trump campaign filed lawsuits in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Georgia. But by this afternoon, judges in Michigan and Georgia dismissed the cases.
You just can't go into court because you're mad or upset.
The ballots are out of control.
I have not seen the proof.
District Judge Matthew Brand dismissed the suit brought by the Trump campaign. Tonight, a federal judge says he won't stop Pennsylvania from certifying its election results.
You just can't go into court because you're mad or upset.
I have not seen the proof. I have not seen the proof.
There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
Remember that.
There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
Remember that. Remember that.
Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
Remember that. Remember that.
The president is also still not conceding nearly 3 weeks after the election.
I won, by the way, but, we'll find that out.
We have not yet been made aware of any information that would change the outcome of the election in Michigan.
You'll never know who the winner is, but the winner's going to be me.
Right from the election.
Boys, stand back and stand by.
The president also got disappointing news Friday from Georgia.
I won, by the way, but, we'll find that out.
The numbers that we have presented today are correct.
Where a hand recount confirmed that President-elect Joe Biden won.
I won, by the way, but, we'll find that out. It'll be the greatest fraud ever perpetrated.
Right from the election.
Boys, stand back and stand by. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There won't be a transfer. There won't be a continuation. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. You'll never know who the winner is, but the winner's going to be me.
Join me every Sunday afternoon. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is Chris. I'm your host for today. Today is November the 22nd, almost 3 weeks after the election. Donald Trump's lawsuits, as you've seen, are, I believe it's 2 for 30 at this point. The tweet that was in the background of the video is a little dated. He just lost a lawsuit in Pennsylvania last night. The decision was made by a Republican-appointed judge who is a member of the Federalist Society, so about as far right as you can go. They're being struck down all over the place in multiple states, and it's pretty much all for the same reason. As I've been pointing out for 2 episodes now, and pointing to prior to this, there isn't any evidence, and this is the same conclusion the judges are coming to. This isn't rocket science. If you go to court, you can't go to court just because you lost. If you go to a referee in a sports game, you can't say you need a penalty just because you lost. Something has to have actually, factually occurred. This isn't rocket science. Even though there's pictures of space alien ships in the intro trailer video. Just saying that Joe told me that he saw people cheating isn't proof. And sending out tweets asking for your supporters to report anything that they saw isn't proof either. If you want to throw out 6 million votes in the state of Pennsylvania, get rid of all of those citizens' constitutional rights to vote, to participate in American democracy, and overthrow an election, you're going to need a pretty high amount of evidence to justify that. The 2 lawsuits that he won, one of them was, I believe, on Election Day, and allowed his poll observers, Republican poll observers, I shouldn't say his, but synonymous at this point, to stand within 6 feet instead of within 12 feet. That doesn't prove fraud. Both parties had to stand 12 feet away. The Trump campaign and their attorney said, hey, this is too far. We can't see what's going on. And the judge said, okay, 6 feet for both of you. That's one of his two victories. The other victory, basically, if you sent in a ballot to the state of Pennsylvania, I believe it was Pennsylvania, if you sent in a ballot and you had filled it out improperly or forgot to sign it or whatever the case was, Pennsylvania would give you a chance prior to the election and prior to the counting of your ballot to come in and fix it, to cure it, is what they called. So if you made a paperwork error, somebody would contact you and you could come in and say, oh, hell, I forgot to fill in this circle completely. And then it would go through. The Trump campaign sued to shorten the window that Pennsylvania would let you do that. That's not fraud either. The cases where he's actually alleged fraud, not talking about the interviews or the press conferences before or after, but when the attorneys are straight in front of judges, they generally won't use the word fraud because they know they can't prove it. They also know that their license would be on the line. As I said countless times last week, saying a thing does not make it true. If I told you that I literally saw my child fly across the room, sprout wings and fly, that doesn't make it a fact. You might question my sanity, but it doesn't make it true. You might ask to see video proof of this. You might ask to come and see it for yourself. You would be asking for evidence. You're not going to just take my word on it. Even if I sign a statement, an affidavit, swearing that this is what I saw. Evidence matters. This is not some new concept. Your guy lost. Get over it. Quit shredding the democratic process on your way out the door. Quit allowing your candidate to shred faith in American democracy with no evidence whatsoever of a widespread, multiple state, multiple county, and multiple polling locations in those counties conspiracy. Because that's what he's claiming. He's not saying, oh, 0.00009% of votes are fraudulent. You know, the historical rate that we found. He's saying that hundreds of thousands of votes were fraudulent in multiple states, in multiple counties. And for some reason, they were all against him. Even where other Republicans won their elections and he lost his, they were all against him. You see, it was a personal conspiracy. It wasn't a conspiracy against all Republicans, just against Donald Trump specifically. maybe there are plenty of people out there who agree with Republican politics, even though I disagree with them, but don't like the fact that he comes across as a jackass sometimes. Just a wild guess. But all of these people in the Georgias and Pennsylvanias that voted down ticket Republican and didn't vote for Trump, you got to remember it was a personal conspiracy against Donald Trump across multiple state lines. The Democrats, according to this theory, were smart enough to pull off this multi-state conspiracy in more states than they needed, but they were smart enough to pull this off, to engineer a conspiracy in Pennsylvania, a conspiracy in Nevada, a conspiracy in Michigan, a conspiracy in Wisconsin, a conspiracy in Georgia, and a conspiracy in Arizona, without leaving a shred of evidence. But at the same time, they were too stupid to realize, hey, we could use this to win other elections too. We could take back the Senate. We could increase our membership in the House of Representatives. No, they were so smart they could pull this off in 6 states. But only for the presidential election, and still leave themselves potentially handicapped by not taking back the Senate. Guys, this conspiracy doesn't even make sense from the inside of it. I mean, it's the same ballots. You're telling me that they can only figure out how to do one of them? It's the same voting machines. You're going to tell me that this voting machine only has the capability of changing one vote for one candidate, but it has to leave all the rest of them alone? Seriously? You're still buying this? It's not even the same voting machines in all the states, so they had to figure out how to do it for multiple voting machines made by multiple different companies. But ironically enough, they could only figure out how to do it for Donald Trump in all those cases. In every county and in all the different polling locations in those counties. Man, if you believe that, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. Some beachfront property down in Arizona, too. I mean, I'm sorry. If it's amusing because it's so childish and so ill thought out, while it's also incredibly disturbing that a president of the United States of America would be calling our elections a fraud. And at the same time, throughout the course of the last year, being unable to commit to a peaceful transition. And at the same time, over the last several months, building a wall, not along the border of Mexico, like he promised he would, but around the White House. I mean, guys, what are we coming to here? Seriously. I mean, I guess you could spin that as building the wall, but I don't think that was the geographic location in which he promised it would be built, and I'm pretty sure that we paid for it. But, hey. And we'll go through the entire interview later. I mean, it's just disturbing and hilarious at the same time. But, you know, according to this interview, these voting machines that are, you know, fake and fraudulent and able to rig elections have been in place since, I believe it was 2006, you know, before he was elected the first time. But again, the Democrats couldn't figure out how to do it the first time, I guess. They only figured out how to spell Trump this election, not Trump's previous election, so they couldn't change the ballots or something last time around. Like I said, this thing doesn't even make sense from inside the conspiracy. There are holes left, right, and center when you look at it. And that's not even taking into account the fact that there's no evidence of this. But if you just take it all as true, just believe what these people are telling you, and then think about that to its logical conclusion. If Democrats had the ability and the desire to fraudulently run all the elections in this country, and have since 2006, how in the hell have Republicans been winning? How did Donald Trump get elected the first time in 2016? And that's 10 years after the Democrats supposedly had this capability. And how the hell, when he was first in office for his first 2 years, did the Republicans have a House majority and a Senate majority? And if the Clinton Foundation, as Trump's lawyer claims in her interview, were part of the people who were in on this conspiracy to rig the Dominion voting machines, why did she use it for Joe Biden's election, but she didn't use it for her own in 2016? Oh, well, it didn't work back then. Well, A, the claim is it worked since 2006. And B, they claim that she used it against Bernie Sanders during the Democratic primary, which comes before the 2016 election. So she could use it against Bernie Sanders, her Democratic opponent, but I guess it didn't work on Republicans at that point in time. I mean, it's the same machines at the same locations where you go to pull the little lever or touch the screen. It's not like the machines got switched out in between. Oh, we're going to use those machines for the Democratic primary in 2016 so Hillary Clinton can win. But then we're going to put in different machines because we're worried about fraud in the 2016 presidential election. And then we're not going to use the fraudulent machines in the 2020 Democratic primary, but we are going to use them in the 2020 presidential election so Donald Trump can lose. What? It doesn't make sense. Like I said, even if I buy, evidence doesn't matter. I'm just going to believe what people are saying because they're on my team and I don't want my guy to lose. The story doesn't make sense inside of the conspiracy. I mean, guys, you're smarter than this. This is a con. That's all it is. He's hustling you out of donations. And if you look at the ad that's soliciting those donations for Donald Trump, it's gone from 60% of your donation goes towards his own private political action committee to 75% of your donation goes to his own political action committee. Every dollar you send him, 75% of it he's keeping to use later. A quarter of it goes towards the current lawsuits. That's how much faith Donald Trump has in his lawsuits. He's not willing to put your money where his mouth is. He certainly isn't putting his own money where his mouth is, but he's not even willing to put your money where his mouth is. I said it last week, and I promise if there's nothing further to this, this is the last episode we're going to do on voter fraud. Unless some evidence gets produced or some major court case comes out and says, hey, this is something we actually need to worry about, or I don't know, any new development beyond a bunch of random people trying to sell you something without any evidence and without any proof, this is the last episode we're doing on this. You're still welcome to call in on it. We'll go over it if anybody wants to call in about it or bring it up in chat, but I'm not focusing on it anymore because there's nothing here. We've done 2 weeks straight, and this is number 3 now. And there's been no new developments except court cases being withdrawn by Trump's attorneys or being shot down by judges in multiple different states appointed by both parties. There's nothing here, guys. There's not even smoke, much less fire. But we'll go over some claims I got this week. We'll go over the latest batshit interview from Trump's campaign attorneys. The new ones, because the previous ones quit. But there's nothing here more than a sore loser throwing a temper tantrum and trying to take 75% of your money for his own future. And if you want to donate to Trump running in 2024 or Trump having an influence on issues, hey, it's your money. I might think you're an idiot. I might disagree with all of his politics, but that's your decision to make. But he can come out and say that. He can come out and say, hey, keep our message relevant. We might have lost this election, but we're not going anywhere. Donate to my political action committee, and I will make sure that your issues are heard. We lost this battle, but we didn't lose the war, and we're still in this fight. But that's not what he's doing. He's saying, this fight's still going on. He's saying, give me all your money to help fight this fight. But I'm going to take 3/4 of it and put it over here for later. Shh. And you wonder why we've been calling him a con man all this time? You wonder why we've been calling Donald Trump a charlatan and a fraud all this time? There's a reason he's putting this stuff in the fine print. All that stuff that everybody that I know, conservatives included, complain about. Oh, you got to read the fine print, see what's hidden in there. There's a reason the percentages are in there. So anyway, let's dive into this latest big Pennsylvania lawsuit. Georgia's pretty much already decided they certified their results. You know, the Republican governor of Georgia, the Republican Secretary of State. Yeah, I guess they're in on this conspiracy too. But they certified their results. The lawsuits in Arizona have been dropped. The lawsuits in Nevada have been dropped. Pennsylvania just got kicked. He's appealing it. But it got dismissed with prejudice. And my understanding, disclaimer, not an attorney, but my understanding is even if he appeals it, all he gets to do is run it back through the lower court levels again. So good luck with that. Basically, he's got to say the judge did something wrong legally, And then he gets to go back to the bottom and start working his way up. It's not like they're going to overturn the decision and keep advancing it. It's not how any of this works, guys. You're being conned. You're being hustled. You're smarter than this. Now, we're going to watch a short clip here, short video, just to show and illustrate the difference, because the new tack, the new idea seems to be, oh, well, we didn't get a peaceful transition from President Obama to President Trump. So we're going to watch a short video to see kind of what that transition was like.
Something that I would note is just we talked a lot about transfer of power in the election, and it's worth remembering that this president was never given an orderly transition of power. His presidency was never accepted.
Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. And we are grateful to President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama for their gracious aid throughout this transition. They have been magnificent. Thank you.
While in 2016, President Trump became the duly elected president, many sought to undermine him, discredit him, delegitimize him, and deny his victory. There were no calls for unity. There were no calls for healing. So while every legal vote is counted, let us not forget the inexcusable transition, or lack thereof, that President Trump had to endure in 2016 and 4 years into his presidency. Thank you, everyone, for the very good and substantive questions today.
I just had the opportunity to have an excellent conversation with President-elect Trump. It was wide-ranging. We talked about some of the organizational issues in setting up a White House. We talked about foreign policy. We talked about domestic policy. And as I said last night, my number one priority in the coming 2 months is to try to facilitate a transition that ensures our president-elect is successful.
What the president heard from the president-elect is a clear commitment to the kind of effective, smooth transition that President Obama has been vowing to preside over for the better part of a year. And the president tends to make good on that promise in the 70 days ahead.
We want every legal vote to be counted, and we want every illegal vote to be discarded.
As President Trump shows no signs of conceding and continues to make baseless accusations of electoral fraud, the Biden-Harris team and even a few Republicans are ready to move on.
I don't think we're going to see anything that's going to overturn this election, and I haven't seen any evidence of widespread. You know, this is the way our system works. Whether you like it or not, it's time to get behind the winner of the race.
The projections still indicate we could lose 200,000 more lives in the coming months before a vaccine can be made widely available. So we can't forego the important work that needs to be done between now and then to get our country through the worst wave yet in this pandemic, to reduce the spread, to save lives. So that's why today I've named a COVID-19 Transition Advisory Board comprised of distinguished public health experts to help our transition team translate the Biden-Harris COVID-19 plan into action.
There is a robust and large transition team busy with policy plans, with interviewing potential nominees or candidates for positions. They're doing their work. They do need access to the vital federal resources that make it easier for them to do their work. They do need access to federal agencies that need to begin planning.
It is important for all of us, regardless of party and regardless of political preferences, to now come together, work together, to deal with the many challenges that we face.
Yeah, it sure doesn't look like Trump got a peaceful transition of power. Look, if there's fraud, you can show me evidence of fraud, prove it. I'll be right there with you. I may not like the man, but I respect and love this country enough to support the country over my own political preferences. But if you've got nothing, no evidence of anything for this multi-state conspiracy that he's claiming, it's time for you to put the country over your loyalty to the man. You've had your time to be upset, and you've had your time to come to grips with reality. He's lost all his court cases so far, all of them for the same damn reason, lack of evidence. Every conservative friend I've had that I've asked for evidence of this conspiracy has given me nothing short of affidavits of people saying, yeah, they saw a conspiracy. And when you try to find these affidavits and look into the proof that might support them, corroborate them, there's nothing. I'm pretty sure I can go around to the mental hospitals in this country right now and find 10, 15, 20 people that'll tell me that aliens, controlled people's minds to pull levers for Donald Trump. That doesn't make it a reality. That doesn't mean I get to throw him out of office. Going around the country, finding people that say, hey, I think I saw election fraud. I can't prove anything, and I have zero evidence. But I think I saw election fraud. That's just as much evidence as the aliens people. If I don't get to throw him out because the aliens told people how to vote, you don't keep him in because somebody somewhere thinks that they might have seen election fraud. And if you had proof, if you had evidence, when somebody asked for it, you'd say, here it is, right here. But instead, all I ever get is, oh, well, I've seen enough to convince me you got to do your own research. I've done plenty of research. I haven't seen a damn thing. I've seen a bunch of people telling me I can't see it. I've seen a bunch of people telling me it's coming. But I haven't seen any actual damn evidence. Both on my personal Facebook page, on Reddit, on Twitter, on Fox News, on Breitbart, on ABC, MSNBC, New York Times, Epoch Times. I've looked. I've engaged in honest conversation. Hey, I'm not seeing anything, guys. What are you seeing? Oh, I've seen enough to convince me. Okay, what was it? Can I see it too? No, you got to go find it on your own. What? I've been looking. I ain't seeing nothing. What did you see that convinced you that this was true? Well, I can't show you that. Why the hell not? Do you have some G13 top secret clearance that I'm unaware of? Or can you not show me because it's not there? Now, I had two people this week want to argue back and forth on Facebook about this. And I personally invited them to call in. So we're going to take a break for a few minutes. Be a 5-minute break. We'll see if they want to keep hiding behind their monitor or if they want to call in and present their case. If they choose not to, I will do the best I can to present their case for them. I will show you exactly what they sent to me, and I will show you my responses to that. We'll be back in 5 minutes, folks. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Had to get a little refresher on the coffee there, give everybody a chance to call in. It looks like they're ducking. I'm not surprised. I mean, I've already been over this with them on Facebook, and there's just nothing here. But we'll go over it with you guys. So, whoops, wrong one. Live TV, what are you going to do? All right, so here we go. This was sent to me yesterday, I believe it was at this point, from conservative news media source Breitbart, claiming that in California, 2 have been charged with voter fraud, multiple counts of voter fraud, submitting fraudulent registration applications on behalf of homeless people. These 2 individuals, charged in a 41-count criminal complaint last week, conspiracy to commit voter fraud. One of the gentlemen submitted over 8,000 fraudulent voter registration applications between July and October of this year. This is the proof that I was given of massive multi-statewide voter fraud. Okay. This is where Breitbart leaves it. 8,000 fraudulent voter registration applications between July and October of this year for this election. Doesn't specify that, but okay. And the gentleman in question is going to face up to 15 years in prison. Okay. There's a little link down here to read the full criminal complaint. Okay, let's go see that. A man who tried to run for mayor in Hawthorne is one of the 2 people. So it looks like he was trying to get votes to help himself run for mayor. Okay. Breitbart doesn't tell you that. Had nothing to do with the presidential election, apparently. It's to help this one guy win the mayor seat. Okay. Submitted 8,000 fraudulent voter registration applications. Okay. Breitbart got that part right, or rather they left it in. The registrar caught on quickly and flagged the applications, so not a one of those 8,000 applications ever actually got to vote. Not one. 8,000 seems like a big number. Not one got to vote. They caught it. Breitbart. Conservative news media, truth-telling Breitbart. Leaves out that part. I wonder why. For this case, the Los Angeles County Registrar, the FBI, and multiple other departments assisted with this investigation. So one guy in a mayor's race in California tries to register a bunch of homeless people to vote so it'll benefit him without these homeless folks' consent. Never specifies that, but I'm going to assume that's the case because I would be personally fine with homeless people voting. They're citizens too in a lot of cases. Well, one guy, to benefit himself, tries to register these folks to vote illegally and gets caught with the FBI's involvement before a single fraudulent ballot is actually cast. Before one fake ballot even gets cast, not counted, cast. Now, the gentleman who sent this to me thinks that this is proof of massive, statewide, across multiple state lines, voter fraud. To me, it's proof of how difficult that would be. You couldn't even get away with it and get one fake ballot through the system. Hell, you couldn't even get away with it and get one fake ballot into the system. Not even through it, into the system. Before you got caught and started facing jail time. That's evidence against your massive multi-statewide conspiracy. It's not evidence for it. Because it didn't work. It didn't work so badly that not one ballot actually got cast, much less got counted. And you think this is proof somehow that it's possible to pull off hundreds of thousands of votes in a presidential election in battleground states without leaving any evidence? So let me get this straight. A guy tries to cheat in the state of California in a race for city mayor in Hawthorne, a town of less than 100,000 people. So we got one dude running in a safe state, right? It's a Democratic state. It's not a battleground state. So it's not going to be under the microscope that much. Running for a decently sized town, but we're not talking like mayor of Los Angeles here. So we'll just call it an average sized town. And he gets caught before he can get one ballot into the system. One. And this is evidence somehow that in battleground states that are hugely under the microscope by both parties, for a presidential election that is hugely under the microscope by both parties, in major cities, because those are where Trump's contesting the votes coming in, because they tend to vote Democrat, but in major cities with lots of people watching, that somehow hundreds of thousands of ballots managed to get through that were fake and fraudulent. Our voter registration system and democratic processes work so well that you can't get a single fake ballot into a mayor's election in some random city, but they also work so poorly that you can get hundreds of thousands of votes fraudulently submitted and counted, even though we don't have any evidence of that, across multiple other states. This is not the evidence you were looking for. This is proof that the system works. This is proof that if you try to commit election fraud, the FBI shows up and you're going to go to jail. Again, I've said it before. If this guy, instead of filling out ballots for homeless people, had shot his neighbor and killed his neighbor, the FBI wouldn't have shown up. But for trying to get one fake ballot through the system, the FBI does show up. And more curiously, why did Breitbart leave out those parts? There's such a thing as lying by omission. Why couldn't Breitbart tell you that not even a single vote was cast? Why didn't Breitbart tell you that not a single vote, not one, was counted? Why didn't Breitbart tell you that one of the guys involved was running for mayor and these votes, these illegal registrations that he was trying to fill out, were for his own race? Those are questions you get to answer. I already know my answers to them. That's why I don't rely on conservative media except to figure out what they're trying to spin at this point. All the things I just listed, those are objective facts. Those aren't opinions. That's why Breitbart, that's up to you. But if you want to ignore evidence, if you want to ignore facts, makes it much easier to tell the story you want to tell. Why do conservative sites feel the need to leave out information just to make their case? It makes it much easier to tell the story you want to tell. I mean, that's my best guess. Like I said, I'll go to these sites, I'll read the stories, I'll read the evidence, and then I go to other sites and read the stories and read the evidence about the same issues. When one site is leaving out information that might help me make an informed decision, and the other site is giving me all the information that they apparently have, but we won't even go that far. Let's just say they're giving me more information than the first site. Again, these are facts, guys. That's not opinion. From the chat, what happened to telling the truth? I have no earthly idea. I guess it gets in the way of the narrative. It gets in the way of the story. Now, the other recent thing that happened is one of Trump's campaign attorneys came out with all kinds of claims. So we're going to run this one in YouTube so I can pause it, ask relevant questions, what went through my head when I first saw this, and keep going and pause it, keep going and pause it. I'm going to warn you, for those of you who are not well informed on conservative talking points, it's a little out there. For those of you who are, feel free to call in.
is the massive influence of communist money through Venezuela, Cuba, and likely China in the interference with our elections here in the United States. The Dominion voting systems, the Smartmatic technology software, and the software that goes in other computerized voting systems here as well, not just Dominion, were created in Venezuela at the direction of Hugo Chavez to make sure he never lost an election after one constitutional referendum came out the way he did not want it to come out. We have one very strong witness who has explained how it all works. His affidavit is attached to the pleadings of Lynn Wood in the lawsuit he filed in Georgia. It is a stunning, detailed affidavit because he was with Hugo Chavez while he was being briefed on how it worked. He was with Hugo Chavez when he saw it operate to make sure the election came out his way. That was the express purpose for creating this software. He has seen it operate, and as soon as he saw the multiple states shut down the voting on the night of the election, he knew the same thing was happening here, that was what had gone on.
So just so far, Hugo Chavez, Venezuela, communist, all buzzword, scary, conservative terms. But let's cut to the meat of the story here. Dominion software can rig elections. And that's who we bought our voting machines from. Okay, how do we know this? One guy wrote a detailed story, affidavit, saying that he knows how all this works and how it all went down. So again, we're back to, we got a guy that says so. That's not evidence. I don't care what other kind of flourishy, embellished details you want to throw into it. I've got an affidavit from one guy, very detailed, that says that aliens in their spaceships came down and they used their secret computers to hack into all the voting machines. And they changed the votes from Trump to Biden. And it's because the communist Venezuelan Hugo Chavez dictator people have a treaty with the aliens to turn the whole world socialist. And we know this because one guy who was in the room when Hugo Chavez negotiated this treaty with the space aliens wrote how it happened. A very detailed account. That's what you're dealing with here, guys. All right, we'll continue. We'll see if there's any more evidence. What else comes out of this? What evidence do we have that she's going to present? One of Trump's attorneys, standing right next to Rudy Giuliani, mind you, Trump's lead attorney. What evidence is she going to present that's greater than my space alien theory? My very detailed space alien account. Let's see.
Now, the software itself was created with so many variables and so many back doors that can be hooked up to the internet or a thumb drive stuck in it or whatever. But one of its most characteristic features is its ability to flip votes. It can set and run an algorithm that probably ran all over the country to take a certain percentage of votes from President Trump and flip them to President Biden.
That's how the space aliens did it. This computer program, it has a back door. And the space aliens and their spaceships, they use that back door to flip a certain percentage of Trump votes to Biden. And it probably happened all over the country. And again, we know her theory is true because one guy wrote a very detailed account saying so. And we know my theory is true because one guy wrote a very detailed account saying so. So far, we have nothing but buzzwords. Let's keep going.
Which we might never have uncovered had the votes for President Trump not been so overwhelming in so many of these states that it broke the algorithm that had been plugged into the system. And that's what caused them to have to shut down in the states they shut down in. That's when they came in the back door with all the mail-in ballots, many of which they had actually fabricated.
Look, she even agreed with me. That's when they as code word for the space aliens, came in the back door. With the mail-in ballots. Oh, shit, I didn't mean to say mail-in ballots. With the fake mail-in ballots. Again, guys, we're still waiting on evidence.
Some were on pristine paper with identically matching perfect circle dots for Mr. Biden. Others were shoved in batches. They're always put in a certain number of batches, and people would rerun the same batch. This corresponds to our statistical evidence.
Hold on, we switched conspiracy theories here. Okay, so first, it was the computers. Did you catch that? First, it was the computers taking a set of votes, and if there were 100 for Trump and 90 for Biden, they would take a percentage of the ones for Trump and just say they were for Joe Biden. Okay? That was the first conspiracy she laid out. Now, the fake mail-in ballots, fraudulent mail-in ballots, they do exist. So we're not talking about votes on paper that are actually for Donald Trump that were just counted wrong. Now we're talking about there are pristine paper ballots for Joe Biden that actually physically exist, but we know they're fake because they were filled out perfectly on the paper. Okay, so two things. First off, can we keep our conspiracies straight? I like my conspiracies one at a time. Okay, that's my first complaint. Number two, I have a 5-year-old. We're going to call him 5. It's like, a month and a half, 2 months till his birthday. And don't get him started on that because, oh my goodness, between Christmas and birthdays and everything else, kid's going crazy, clipping stuff out of newspapers for what he wants for presents. But I'm teaching my almost 5-year-old how to color in the lines at almost 5. He won't be able to vote until he's 18. So while I try to be the best parent I can be, I think every parent out there knows we don't always succeed in that. But I hope over the course of the next 13 years that by the time he's eligible to vote, I can teach him how to color in the lines of a circle. Because that's what she said. We know these ballots for President Biden that we're now admitting exist. We know they're fake ballots because they're filled in perfectly, the circles. Now, I'll be the first to admit there are some adults out there who can't fill in circles. But most of the ones I know, Hell, most of the kids I know that take standardized tests on the little Scantron sheets, you know, where you fill in the circles with your number 2 pencil. That's not a skill we're just not teaching in schools anymore. I mean, what did she expect? Everybody to just like put an X through the circle or something? I mean, come on. But again, please, one conspiracy at a time here. Don't forget that she switched conspiracies on you. Because originally, these votes didn't exist. They were Trump votes. The computers just counted them wrong. Because the secret space aliens came in the back door to change the way the computer counted the votes. But now these votes do exist, but we know they're fake because people can color in the lines. Let's see if we get any more.
That shows incredible spikes in the vote counts at particular times, and that corresponds to eyewitness testimony of numerous people who have come forward and said they saw the ballots come in the back door at that time. Notably, the Dominion executive.
Does this lady not understand like how computers work? If you're talking about a backdoor in a computer, you're talking about, you know, some hacker dude coming in and, you know, going into a little passageway he made himself in the computer. It's not a physical backdoor. And now, since we're on the second conspiracy, but we still want to use the backdoor terminology, we're just going to say we saw a bunch of ballots come in the back door and we know they were fake because people could color in the lines. We also know they were fake because a bunch of ballots got counted at once. Well, that's how they count ballots. I mean, if we're going to stick with the second conspiracy here, okay, about physical mail-in ballots being counted, well, I mean, if you've ever worked in an office, okay, I'm done with this pile of work. Boom. Oh, look, my boss is bringing me another pile of work. Boom. Let me count these. Hey, boss, I'm done. Go run these through the machine. Then the next pile comes in. I don't care whether they come in through the front door. I don't care whether they come in through the back door. I don't care whether they come in through the side door. I didn't know that what door they came through was what made them fake votes. Like what physical door in the building they come through matters now? Seriously? All right, let's continue. We're still waiting on evidence because, again, remember, now we're talking about multiple people saw which door these ballots came in physically. And that's what makes them fraudulent fake votes.
Executives are nowhere to be found now. They are moving their offices overnight to different places. Their office in Toronto was shared with one of the Soros entities, one of the...
This one's going to be quick. I'm just pointing out that that's another conservative buzzword. George Soros, you know, the leftist guy who's secretly running like a puppet all of the other socialist people and pays people to protest according to, you know, conservative believers. It's a big coincidence, I promise, that he happens to be Jewish, but that's a fact. He is, and he's been accused of all of these things, you know, being the puppet master by those on the far right. If anybody wants to dispute that, feel free to call in. But another buzzword. Let's scare everybody that's conservative.
Leaders of the Dominion project in overall is Lord Malloch Brown, Mr. Soros' number 2 person in the UK and part of his organization. There are ties of the Dominion leadership to the Clinton Foundation and to other known politicians in this country. Just to give you a brief description of how this worked, I'm going to quote from a letter that was written, and I will read that to make sure I get the quote.
Can't have a good conspiracy theory without the Clintons. I mean, they got to be in on it. And I think she was choking a little bit on that bullshit there. Excuse me.
That's right. This person was objecting to the United States acquisition of Sequoia voting systems by Smartmatic, a foreign-owned company. I believe this transaction raises exactly the sort of foreign ownership issues that CFIUS is best positioned to examine for national security purposes. It's undisputed that Smartmatic is foreign-owned and it has acquired Sequoia. They keep changing the names as they go along. Different times when a problem comes up, they just create another corporation and call it a different name.
At different times when people start realizing we don't have evidence, we just come up with a different conspiracy theory. We're already into 2 so far in this video, and we're going to try and throw in a third because, don't pay attention.
But it was a voting machine company doing business in the United States. Sequoia voting machines were used to record over 125 million votes during the 2004 presidential election in the United States. Smartmatic now acknowledges that Antonio Mujica, a Venezuelan businessman, has controlling interest in Smartmatic, but the company has not revealed who all the Smartmatic owners are. According to the press, Smartmatic's owners are hidden through a web of offshore private entities, and that is in fact true. Smartmatic has been associated with the Venezuelan government led by Hugo Chavez, which is openly hostile to the United States, and of course, as we all know, communistic and really brutalizing its own people. The system has been continued there by Mr. Maduro and ensured his election.
Is this where we're trying to merge the conspiracies? I thought we were talking about the election in 2020, and now you're saying that these Sequoia machines, not the Dominion ones, but the Sequoia machines have been also run by Venezuela and also run by Hugo Chavez since 2004. How the hell did Trump win in 2016? Was he in bed with the Venezuelan secret communist space aliens back then, and then he changed his mind for 2020 and they decided to back another horse? Oh, don't forget the Clinton Foundation was involved in this. Didn't Hillary run in 2016 against Donald Trump? Did she forget to make the phone call to tell them what day the election was on or something? Or were the space aliens ships that were necessary to get in the back door to make this all work? I mean, were they just like down for maintenance, needing an oil change or something? And remember, we still all know this because one guy wrote a detailed story about it. The only other evidence that's been offered is a lot of people saw physical ballots come in the back door of a building. I'll accept that as true, just based off their say-so. Because ballots can come in front doors and back doors, and side doors, and wherever the hell else. Mailbox, mailroom, yeah. I'm fine with all of that. But if you want me to believe that the secret communist Venezuelan Soros-run Clinton Foundation conspiracy theory has been running these voting elections since 2004, I'm going to need more than one guy was in a room and wrote a story about it. Hell, it's not even that good. One guy wrote a story that he was in a room and knew what was going on. Because so far they haven't even offered proof that the guy that wrote the story was in the same room as any of these people. But all right, let's see if it gets any better.
Smartmatic's possible connection to the Venezuelan government poses a potential national security.
Wait, possible connection? I swear a few minutes ago she said it was definitely for sure run by the Venezuelans and Hugo Chavez. And now it's possible? I'm not going to rewind it to double check because this is already taking too long as it is. But this is how they get you. This is how conspiracy theories work. We're just going to throw out lots of random facts and a lot of random stories and a lot of random claims with no evidence, none. And we're going to do it so fast that you don't have the time to check any of it. Guys, this is no better than flat earth theory so far. There's equal evidence. I can find a guy that says in a story, in a written account, that the earth is flat. I promise you I can find that guy. And if you don't believe me, just YouTube flat earth. You'll find some people. But now, we're not even saying the earth is flat. We're not saying the machines are for sure owned by the Venezuelan secret communist government, Hugo Chavez Clinton Foundation secret society. We're saying possibly. Okay.
Security concern in the context of its acquisition of Sequoia, because electronic voting machines are susceptible to tampering, and insiders are in the best position to engage in such tampering. This letter expresses concern of the Chicago 2006 primary election. And it ends by saying the products and services that are of Venezuelan origin, and evaluate Smartmatic's ownership to determine who could have influence and control over these and other Sequoia products and services are important to the national security of the United States. This letter was written to Hank Paulson on October 6, 2006 by Congresswoman Carolyn B. Maloney. Senators Klobuchar and Warren have raised these concerns as recently as December 2019. Why our government has not taken them seriously is beyond my comprehension.
Now that's a question I can answer. So after the investigation into meddling in the 2016 election by the Russian government, the Democratic Party in the House over the last year, 2 years, has raised multiple election security bills saying, hey, we're concerned about what's going on, what's potentially going on, what the potential is for these machines to have issues, whatever. We need to preemptively, before anything happens, address this. Republicans are the ones who didn't vote for those. Republicans are the ones that haven't raised any election security issues until after they lost an election. Personally, I would be fine with universal mail-in voting and voting in person if you want to, with physical paper ballots. But remember, according to conspiracy theory number 2 from this interview, if your paper ballot is filled out too well, if you can color in the circles and the lines, then those are fraudulent too if they also happen to come in through the back door of the physical building. But as to why any of these potential concerns have not been addressed, the answer is because Republicans. There you go. Glad I could help you.
Unless they have, some of the three-letter agencies have used them themselves in other parts of the world. We know that the technology was exported to affect an election in Argentina. That's admitted by our friend who wrote the affidavit about Hugo Chavez and his interest in Smartmatic.
It's just one claim after another, isn't it? God, this is ridiculous. We know that these machines can influence elections because it's been used before in Argentina by our government to rig the election in Argentina. How do we know that? Because the same guy, the original guy who claims he was in a room and wrote a story about how, the Venezuelans are going to run our election over here fakely. Yeah, that was also a part of his story. So we're still back down to one guy told me so. You know what? My guy told me that the alien spaceships that were, in a treaty with the Venezuelans, they also went down to Argentina and influenced that election as well. That's not proof. We're still back to one guy told me so. And again, I apologize for having to pause this video what seems like every 5 seconds. But that's how ridiculous this thing is. We're going to watch it to its completion because I don't want anybody jumping in saying, oh, you're not covering it. Oh, you're hiding the truth. Oh, she gets to the evidence. We're halfway, a little over halfway through this thing. There hasn't been a single piece of evidence shown yet. All we have is this one guy wrote a story. That's it. Still waiting for more than that. This one guy wrote a story, and we saw some really well filled out ballots by adults who could apparently color in the lines. We're not even claiming all of them were perfectly filled out because some adults can't color in the lines, but we saw some that were. Okay, we're going to continue.
Again, in 2006, Carolyn Maloney wrote the Honorable John Snow, the Secretary of the Treasury, about the issues. Speaking of Smartmatic's leadership, one of the Smartmatic patent holders, Eric Coomer, I believe his name is on the web as being recorded in a conversation with Antifa members saying that he had the election rigged for Mr. Biden, nothing to worry about here, and they were going to F Trump. His social media is filled with hatred for the president and for the United States of America as a whole.
Hating President Trump isn't a crime. It's not illegal. Posting that you hate President Trump on your social media, well, that's not a crime. It's not illegal. It's not election fraud. And this guy posting on the web is not a crime. It's not illegal. And notice, she doesn't offer you any of this guy talked to Antifa saying he has the election rigged. We're back to, again, another guy said something. Except in this case, so far, maybe it'll change by the end of the interview, because I honestly don't remember at this point. But so far, we're not going to show you that. You're just going to have to take our word for it. Antifa is not an organization. There's nowhere I can go and sign up and join up. So who exactly was this guy talking to? Why should I care that this guy claims to have the election in the bag rigged? What exactly did he say? Who exactly did he say it to? Antifa? Antifa's not an organization. Still waiting on evidence beyond this one guy said. I know a guy that says the earth is flat, and you don't need to worry about getting a flight from, Sydney, Australia to Caracas in South America. I know a guy that says he was abducted by aliens. I know a guy that says that cows get abducted by aliens. But you don't need to worry about it because, the aliens told me they don't like your cows. I mean, all right, let's continue.
As are the social media accounts of many other Smartmatic people. There has been widespread use of this. Dominion itself is utilized in 2,000 jurisdictions in 30 states. It has been uncertifiable in multiple states who realized all the problems that it had, including Texas. Experts have described it across the board, from a Princeton group of 3 professors to
some states like Dominion voting systems. Other states don't like Dominion voting systems. Texas is one of the states that doesn't like them. Anything else there? I didn't get anything else from that. It's irrelevant. Some people like cheese and crackers. Other people don't like cheese and crackers. Okay, and it's a company. They're not going to sell their stuff everywhere. Some people like Ford F-150s. Other people don't like Ford F-150s. People in Texas like their Ford F-150s. I mean, come on, guys.
experts that we have talked to about its end user vulnerabilities. People can admittedly go in and change whatever they want. They can set the ratio of votes from one thing to another. They can say that a Biden vote counts as 1.25 and a Trump vote counts as 0.75. And those may be the numbers that were actually used here.
Okay. Here's another claim. You can set the percentages of votes, how they count. So we're back to conspiracy theory number 1. We're ignoring conspiracy theory number 2 at this point, where we're talking about physical mail-in ballots. We're back to conspiracy theory number 1, where you've got 100 votes for Trump, and out of those 100 votes, we're going to count 70% of them, 80% of them for Trump. And the other 20, 30%, we're going to give to Joe Biden. So basically what they're saying is one vote isn't worth one vote if you voted for Trump. It's worth 3/4 of a vote, because the other quarter we're just going to tack on to Biden's total. Okay, that's conspiracy theory number 1. Remember, we've already run 2 or 3 conspiracy theories in this thing. Okay, so again, we're offering no evidence that this is actually possible. We've got some Princeton guys who say that it's possible. Okay, more people saying that it's possible. Let's grant for a minute that it's possible. I don't think it is, but I'm not a computer scientist. I'm not a programmer. Let's say for a minute that it is possible. Prove that it happened. That's what we're talking about here. That's what you're alleging. It's possible for me to buy a gun and go shoot somebody. I don't go to jail because it's possible. I go to jail if I actually go do that. And you have to prove that I actually went and did it, not that it's possible that I could have. There's a big difference here. We're not trying to prove what's possible or impossible. We're talking about what actually happened or did not happen. Make your case. Show some evidence. Show evidence greater than what I can show for space aliens rigging the election. Because I can find some scientists out there that say mathematically it's likely that space aliens exist. That means it's possible. Should we throw out our entire election and all the ballots because it's possible that aliens exist? And if they exist, it's possible that they could come and influence our election. I mean, these computers, they have back doors. The internet's a thing. Satellite internet's a thing. Wi-Fi is a thing. And she said earlier, you could do it from the internet. It's possible anyway. It's also possible you could do it from a thumb drive. So if it's possible, we're back to, please show me how this is any different than the guy who writes a story saying that space aliens in a treaty with Venezuela did it. Right now, we've still got equal evidence, guys. Still.
It's not just the swing states that were affected. The algorithm was likely run across the country to affect the entire election. Like I said, we only discovered it this year because of the overwhelming number of votes for President Trump in the swing states that caused the machines to have to shut down for them to backfill for adding votes. We have evidence of different numbers of votes being injected into the system, the same identical, unique 6-digit number multiple times in at least 2 states that we've analyzed so far. And I'm talking about like 341,542 votes for Biden and 100,012 for Trump. There's no explanation, no logical explanation for the same numbers being injected 20 minutes apart into the machine.
If there's no explanation, then there's no explanation. That doesn't mean that you get to make one up. Even if I accept for a minute that this happened exactly the way that you said it did, 300,400 and whatever versus 100,000 whatever for Trump across multiple state lines. Even if I accepted that, by your own words, there's no explanation. That's called a coincidence. If you want me to take it as more than a coincidence, if you want to offer an explanation, then you need to provide evidence to support your explanation. But you know you can't do that, which is why you said, there's no explanation. You're an attorney. It's called a burden of proof. You should know this. But by your own admission, there's no explanation. Okay, I'll go with that. There's no explanation. Doesn't mean you get to use it as support for your conspiracy theory. And notice we mixed the 2 conspiracy theories there again, because they talked about physical ballots being brought in the door again. So it was a 2-pronged conspiracy theory, because you couldn't rely on the secret space aliens doing the backdoor thing to, influence the votes or whatever.
The software manual itself, you can download it from the internet, and I would encourage you all to read it because it specifically advertises some of these things as features of the system. Why it was ever allowed into this country is beyond my comprehension, and why nobody has dealt with it is absolutely appalling.
Democrats tried to bring up election security during this administration. I agree it's appalling that nothing was done. Might want to go look in the mirror. You're on the wrong side of this, but you can't say that. Not at this press conference. Have some integrity. I'm just curious how much money it took.
The machines were easily accessible to hackers. There's video on the net that it will explain to you how a kid with a cell phone can hack one of these voting machines. There's been no oversight of Dominion or its software.
There's stuff on the internet showing you how a kid with a cell phone can hack one of these voting machines. That's awesome. Can you prove that it happened? There's video on the internet showing you how a kid with a bobby pin can pick the lock to your front door to rob your house. That doesn't mean it happened. And until it happens, it's not a crime. Novel concept.
Workers in each county were trained by Dominion, but there's no evidence of any monitoring otherwise. We have testimony of different workers admitting that they were trained how to dispose of Trump votes and add to Biden votes. The software has a feature pursuant to which you can drag and drop any number of batches of votes to the candidate of your choice or simply throw them away. So we have mathematical evidence in a number of states of massive quantities of Trump votes being trashed.
You have mathematical coincidence, but by your own admission that there is no explanation for. That's not evidence. When, by your own admission, there is no explanation. You have some more stories of people saying, people that you don't name, people whose credibility I can't investigate, people who offer no evidence corroborating this, saying they were told how to trash Trump votes. Okay. I was in the military. I was trained how to shoot people. That doesn't mean I've ever actually gone and shot people. And hell, I got photos of me being taught how to shoot people. Do you have anything comparable for these people who were trained or say they were on how to dump, trash Trump votes? I still haven't seen anything beyond some people said so.
Just simply put it in the trash like you would on your computer with any file, and Biden votes being injected. That's addition to the flipping. I mean, it really happens in two ways. There's an algorithm that runs that automatically flips all the votes, and then each operator has the ability to go in, override settings. They can ignore a signature. They can ignore the top line of the ballot. They can go down ballot and select who they want to change the results for. Mr. The gentleman who founded Smartmatic, there's video of him on the internet explaining that, yes, at least one occasion, he admits they changed 1 million votes with no problem.
Okay, so now we're up to 3 or 4 conspiracies, depending on how you want to count that one in the middle. Okay. We got the first one where the computer does it on its own, right? You got the 100 Trump votes. They only count for 75 Trump votes because 25% of those, each individual vote goes to Biden, so he'd pick up 25 net votes. Okay. So that's conspiracy theory number 1. Conspiracy theory number 2, you've got the mail-in ballots that came in through the back door of a physical building. And we know those were fake because they were, colored in the lines of the circles. Okay. So that's conspiracy theory number 2. Okay. Conspiracy theory number 3, now on this one, is that individual ballot workers can change votes, individual votes on individual machines. And you can take them and drag them and drop them and put them in the trash can on the machine, and it throws away the vote and yada, yada, yada. Okay. So we're up to 3 conspiracies at this point. We still don't have a lick of evidence beyond somebody told me so. Somebody wrote a story on any of this. Like I said, even if I grant that these things are possible, you have to prove that they actually occurred. They actually happened. Because people don't go to jail for possibilities. I'm not going to jail because it's possible that I might shoot somebody. I'm not going to jail because I know how to drive a car, and your car in your front yard in your driveway has an owner's manual that tells me how to start it. So it's possible I could steal it because online there's a video that shows me how to pop a lock on a car. That's not going to send me to jail, guys. It's not going to send you to jail because it's not a crime. You have to prove that it actually occurred. And we haven't come anywhere close to that. The only things we have so far that's saying it's occurred is one guy saying that he was in a room where all of this was planned. Now, normally I'd write this off as some kook, some crazy lady. But she's standing next to the President of the United States, lead attorney on this. She's standing next to Rudy Giuliani, presenting their case. This is what we've got. All right, we got a few minutes left to go. I'm going to let it run a little bit further. I'm not going to stop on every single claim at this point just because I'm getting tired. This is ridiculous.
Many of the jurisdictions that have had this problem might not have known of the issues, but many did. And I think a full-scale criminal investigation needs to be undertaken immediately by the Department of Justice and by every state's equivalent, Attorney General's office or state investigatory unit, because there's evidence of different benefits being provided to the people who spent $100 million of taxpayer money at the last minute for their state to get the Dominion voting systems put in time for this election in different ways. There's one person that a lawyer told me got, quote, election insurance, meaning that he would be able to make sure he was elected. I'm sure they explained that feature in detail to many people who expressed interest in putting this voting system in. Texas denied certification of the Dominion system in 2019, but there are no doubt issues with the software that Texas did use, unbeknownst to Texas, I would imagine, since they went to great trouble to examine the Dominion systems and reject them. But other software, the source code that does the alterations is embedded, we have been told, in the source code all across the country and all the voting machines. There's no doubt it has been used to alter elections in other countries. We know specifically that Venezuela exported it for that purpose to Argentina and other Latin American companies to make sure that the corrupt rulers who were willing to pay the
She can't even keep her own damn story straight. Because remember, before, Venezuela gave it to us to influence our elections, and then our 3-letter agencies, I'm assuming she's referring to the CIA previously during the interview, used it in Argentina to influence their elections. Now, at the end of her interview, she's saying Venezuela exported it directly to Argentina to influence their elections. She missed a step there. Like I said, this thing doesn't even make sense from inside of the conspiracy theory, even if I buy it. And all of this, the one fact that she raised, Texas didn't certify Dominion software systems. I chose not to buy a Chevy truck. I chose to buy a Ford. That doesn't mean that the Chevy truck is a death trap, unsafe machine. And all of this is based off of it's possible and We know it's true because one guy claims he was in a room. All right, last little bit, I promise.
The highest price for being in office were allowed to rig their elections. This is stunning, heartbreaking, infuriating, and the most unpatriotic acts I can even imagine for people in this country to have participated in any way, shape, or form. And I want the American public to know right now that we will not be intimidated. American patriots are fed up with the corruption from the local level to the highest level of our government, and we are going to take this country back. We are not going to be intimidated. We are not going to back down. We are going to clean this mess up now. President Trump won by a landslide. We are going to prove it, and we are going to reclaim the United States of America for the people who vote for freedom.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please.
There we agree. Up until that very last bit on the end. We're sick of the corruption. That's why we voted your butt out. We're sick of the lies. That's why we voted you out. We're sick of the global pandemic restrictions and all of the American citizens that are dying in this country. That's why we voted you out. And if you think that we're going to sit by quietly while you try to steal this election and ignore the results and ignore our votes without any evidence, with a bunch of wild claims and possibilities that you can't even prove, because you found one guy that would write you a story saying that he knows how all this went down, you're wrong. Because the American people are on the side of freedom. You're damn straight we are. The freedom to cast our votes the way we want them. The freedom to have our vote count, even if it's against you. And if you think we're going to go quietly while you try and pull off this little coup thing that you're doing, you got another thing coming. Some of us have some integrity, unlike that lady there. And you can't just buy us and shut us up. On that note, we've got one little song, kind of humorous, that we're going to play on the way out of the show. And then we'll be done. It's R-rated. There's nothing visual that's going to offend you. But there's a few curse words in it. I won't lie to you. So if that's something you don't want to listen to, feel free to tune out now. And I thank you for watching. But it's absolutely hilarious to me. It's not something I can take credit for. I found it on Reddit. So feel free to go find it on Reddit if it's something that you liked. But I find it endlessly amusing. Again, I thank you for watching. I hope to hear from you next week. And if you don't like foul language, then go ahead and tune off of the show. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend.
Bye-bye, Donnie, your time is up, so you can take your lies and you can go get fucked. The people spoke and they spoke by mail, so pack your shit, cause it's time to bail. Sorry, buddy, but you lost it, mate, and like everything true, you'll call it fake. But who'd have thought you'd be such a wussy when America grabbed you by the pussy and threw you out after just one term, cause they finally realised that you're a germ. And COVID's not the only thing you spread, like lies, fear, hate, confusion and dread. And you told your own voters not to vote by mail in a global pandemic, and that was your fail. So shut up, Donnie, and practice what you preach. Have some dignity and give your concession speech. Just tell everyone it's a conspiracy. Blame your fall on American democracy. Make up excuses and a million reasons from your shitty press conference at the Four Seasons. Get out there and go tell more lies. Do what you do best and propagandize. No one's expecting you to be apologetic, but let me explain it using your logic. See, you find more COVID when you do more tests, and you find more results when more votes get read. It's crazy, but that's how counting works. I can show you if you want to share your tax returns. You'll be fine, old mate. You survived impeachment. You survived coronavirus by injecting disinfectant. You've had 6 bankruptcies and 2 divorces, 200 days of tax paid golf and golf courses. You survived the guilt of putting kids in cages and 26 sexual misconduct accusations. You've only got like 4,000 active lawsuits, so man up, Donnie, and hang up the boots. Fake news, fake hair, fake tan, fake smiles, fake offshore accounts in the Cayman Isles. You're a fake president with a fake first lady who's gonna take half of your fake ass money. And you finally succeeded in building your wall around the White House, and it's 10 feet tall. For someone who hates lockdown as much as you do, you were quick to lock yourself down in there, dude. Fake friends who used you to climb the ladder, and fake everything else that no longer matters. Fake supporters who piss on homeless people. You're the sworn enemy of the American eagle, cause you tried to fool the world with no regret, and you're in $900 million debt. On the down low, if you know what I mean, like your old mate, Jeffrey Epstein. Nah, you'll be fine, you've told 20,000 lies and 230,000 people have died, just like Daddy's money gave you your start. Daddy Bannon will give you a job at Breitbart, cause no one believes your bullshit rules, cause you're doing what you said you'd do when you lose. So see ya, buddy, you gave it a crack, and now even Fox News hasn't got your back. So sorry, old chum, but you're out of tricks, and you can suck 75 million dicks. The people voted someone else was hired, so sorry to say it, cunt, but you're fired.